Picture this. You're at your own son's wedding. You've spent months planning. You've paid for everything. The flowers, the food, the venue, everything. And then the bride walks up to you and says, "You're sitting in the kitchen today." Not at a back table. Not in the corner. The kitchen. Like you're the help. What would you do? Would you make a scene? Would you cry? Would you leave? Well, I did something else. I smiled. I said, "Of course, dear." And then I made one phone call that changed everything. Stay with me because what happened next will shock you. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the best revenge is served cold. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I share real-life stories about family drama, relationships, and sometimes a little bit of sweet justice. Today's story comes from a mother who thought she was just being a good parent. She thought she was supporting her son's big day. But sometimes being too nice gets you walked all over. And sometimes you have to stand up for yourself in ways people never see coming. This story has everything. Family drama, wedding disasters, and revenge so perfect it'll give you chills. But before we dive in, if you enjoy stories like this, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We post new stories every single day. Now, let's get into this incredible story. So our story starts with Margaret. That's not her real name, but that's what we'll call her. Margaret is a 58-year-old woman who raised her son David as a single mother. David's father left when David was just 3 years old. So for 25 years, it was just Margaret and David against the world. She worked 2 jobs to put him through college. She never remarried because she wanted to focus on being the best mom she could be, and David turned out great. He got a good job. He bought his own place. He met a girl named Jessica, and after 2 years of dating, he proposed. Margaret was thrilled. She always dreamed of planning her son's wedding. She imagined walking him down the aisle since there was no father in the picture. She imagined dancing with him at the reception. She imagined giving a speech about how proud she was. When David told her he was engaged, the first thing Margaret said was, "Don't worry about the money, honey. I've been saving for this day for years." And she had been saving. Margaret worked as a nurse, and she picked up extra shifts for 3 years. She had almost $50,000 saved up just for David's wedding. $50,000. That's not pocket change for a single mom who worked her whole life. So the planning began. And at first, everything seemed perfect. Jessica seemed sweet. She called Margaret Mom, which made Margaret's heart melt. They would spend hours looking at wedding magazines together. They'd visit venues and taste cakes. Margaret was so happy. She finally felt like she had the daughter she never had. But then things started to change. It started small. Jessica would make little comments. "Oh, Margaret, that dress is a bit too young for you, don't you think?" Or, "Margaret, maybe you shouldn't dance too much at the reception. We don't want you to embarrass David." Margaret brushed it off. She thought Jessica was just stressed about the wedding. Planning a wedding is hard work, right? But the comments got worse. Jessica started making decisions without asking Margaret. She changed the flowers Margaret had picked. She switched the menu Margaret had chosen. She even uninvited some of Margaret's friends because we need to make room for more important people. David didn't say anything. When Margaret tried to talk to him about it, he would just say, "Mom, Jessica is stressed. Just let her have what she wants. It's her special day. Her special day. Not their special day. Her special day." Margaret was paying for everything, but somehow it became all about Jessica. Then came the guest list drama. Margaret had a list of about 30 people she wanted to invite. These were family members, close friends, people who had been part of David's life since he was a child. Jessica looked at the list and laughed. Actually laughed. "We can't invite all these people," Jessica said. "Half of them are too old or too poor. They'll bring down the whole vibe of the wedding." Margaret was shocked. These were good people. These were people who loved David. Margaret's sister who helped raise David when Margaret was working 2 jobs. Margaret's best friend who babysat David for free countless times. David's old teacher who still sent him birthday cards. "Too old or too poor?" Margaret asked. "Look, Mom," Jessica said. And the way she said Mom wasn't sweet anymore. It was fake. "This is going to be a high-class event. We're inviting important people, business contacts, people who matter. People who matter. Like Margaret's family and friends didn't matter." Margaret tried to talk to David again. "Honey, these people love you. They've been part of your life forever." But David just shrugged. "Jessica knows what's best for the wedding, Mom. Trust her." So Margaret watched as her guest list got cut down to just 5 people. 5 people out of 30. And even those 5 people got the worst seats in the venue. But Margaret stayed quiet. She kept paying the bills. She kept smiling. She kept telling herself that David's happiness was all that mattered. The week before the wedding, Margaret got a call from Jessica. "Hi, Mom," Jessica said in that fake, sweet voice. "I have some exciting news about the seating arrangements." Margaret had been wondering where she would sit. Usually the mother of the groom sits in the front row. It's tradition. Margaret had been looking forward to having a perfect view of her son getting married. "Where am I sitting?" Margaret asked. "Well," Jessica said, "we've decided to put you somewhere special. Somewhere where you can be really helpful." Margaret got a bad feeling in her stomach. "We're putting you in the kitchen," Jessica continued. "You'll be right there to help coordinate with the catering staff. Make sure everything runs smoothly. It's such an important job." Margaret couldn't believe what she was hearing. "The kitchen?" "Yes. Isn't that perfect? You know how much you love to take care of everyone. This way, you can make sure the whole wedding goes perfectly." Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "Margaret, are you there?" "Yes," Margaret said quietly. "I'm here." "So you're okay with the kitchen?" And this is where Margaret made the decision that changed everything. She could have screamed. She could have cried. She could have demanded to speak to David right away. Instead, she took a deep breath and said the words that would become legendary. "Of course, dear. Whatever you think is best." Jessica sounded surprised. She probably expected a fight. "Oh, okay, great. Thanks for being so understanding, Mom." After Margaret hung up the phone, she sat in her kitchen for about an hour, just thinking. She thought about all the extra shifts she worked. She thought about all the money she saved. She thought about all the dreams she had about her son's wedding day. And then she picked up her phone and started making calls. The first call Margaret made was to the wedding venue. "Hi, this is Margaret Thompson. I'm the one paying for the David Thompson wedding this Saturday." "Oh yes, Ms. Thompson. How can I help you?" "I need to cancel everything." "Cancel?" "The wedding is in 3 days." "I understand. I'm the one paying for it and I want to cancel." There was a pause. "Ma'am, we have a no-refund policy for cancellations less than a week before the event. I'm not asking for a refund. I just want to cancel." The person on the phone sounded confused. "You don't want your money back?" "No. I just want the reservation canceled." "Can you do that?" "Well, yes, but then please cancel it." "Thank you." Margaret hung up and made the next call. She called the catering company. "Hi, this is Margaret Thompson. I need to cancel the catering for the David Thompson wedding this Saturday." Same conversation. Same confusion. Same cancellation. Then Margaret called the florist, canceled. Then the photographer, canceled. Then the band, canceled. Then the cake company, canceled. One by one, Margaret canceled every single thing she had paid for. The venue, the food, the flowers, the music, the cake, even the decorations. Everything. It took her about 2 hours to make all the calls. And with each phone call, Margaret felt a little bit better. She wasn't being mean. She wasn't trying to hurt anyone. She was just taking back control of her own money. Saturday morning came. Margaret woke up early and got dressed in her beautiful mother of the groom dress. She did her hair and makeup. She looked perfect. At 10 a.m., she got a phone call. It was David. "Mom, the venue says they don't have our reservation." Margaret's voice was calm. "Oh, really?" "Yeah, they say it was canceled. But that's impossible, right? Can you call them and figure out what happened?" "I'll look into it," Margaret said. 20 minutes later, David called again. "Mom, the caterers aren't coming, either. They say the order was canceled. And the florist says the same thing. What's going on?" "That's very strange," Margaret said. "I'll try to figure it out." By noon, David had called 6 more times. The photographer wasn't coming. The band wasn't coming. The cake wasn't going to be delivered. Nothing was happening. "Mom, what's going on?" David's voice was getting panicked. "The wedding is in 4 hours and we have nothing. No venue, no food, no cake. Nothing." "That does sound like a problem," Margaret said calmly. "Can you help us fix this? Can you call everyone and figure out what happened?" Margaret took a deep breath. "David, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I canceled everything." There was silence on the phone for about 10 seconds. "You what?" "I canceled everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers, everything." "Why would you do that?" And this is the moment Margaret had been waiting for. "David," Margaret said, "do you know where your fiancé wanted me to sit at your wedding?" "What does that have to do with anything?" "Do you know where she wanted me to sit?" David was quiet. "She wanted me to sit in the kitchen, David. Not at a table. Not in the back. In the kitchen. Like I was the help." "The kitchen?" "Yes. The kitchen. After I paid for everything. After I worked extra shifts for 3 years to save up $50,000 for your perfect wedding. After I gave up everything I wanted so you and Jessica could have exactly what she wanted. She wanted me to sit in the kitchen." David was quiet for a long moment. "Mom, I didn't know." "You didn't know because you didn't ask. You didn't care. For months, Jessica has been cutting my friends from the guest list. She's been making me feel small and unwelcome. And you've been letting it happen. I thought you were okay with everything. I was trying to be okay with everything because I love you. But David, I'm your mother. I raised you by myself. I worked 2 jobs so you could have everything you needed. And when it came time for the biggest day of your life, your fiancé wanted to hide me in the kitchen." Margaret could hear David breathing on the other end of the phone. "So I made a decision," Margaret continued. "If I'm not good enough to sit at my own son's wedding like a proper guest, then maybe I'm not good enough to pay for it either." "Mom, we can fix this. We can change the seating arrangements. It's too late for that, David." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've already canceled everything, and I'm not paying for it to be put back together." What happened next was chaos. Jessica called Margaret screaming. Actually screaming. "How could you do this to me? This is my wedding day. You've ruined everything." Margaret's response was simple. "I thought it was David's wedding day too. You're a selfish, bitter old woman. Maybe I am. But I'm a selfish, bitter old woman with $50,000 in her bank account." Jessica hung up on her. Then David's friends started calling. Then Jessica's family started calling. Everyone wanted to know what happened. Everyone wanted Margaret to fix it. But Margaret had made her decision. She spent that Saturday afternoon in her garden, reading a book. While her son and his fiancée scrambled to figure out what to do, Margaret was peaceful for the first time in months. Around 6 p.m., which was when the wedding was supposed to start, Margaret got a text from David. We managed to have a small ceremony at Jessica's parents' house. Just immediate family. No reception. I hope you're happy. Margaret texted back. I hope you are happy too. I love you. But the story doesn't end there. In the weeks after the canceled wedding, Margaret didn't hear from David at all. She was sad, but she wasn't surprised. Jessica had convinced David that Margaret was a terrible person, that she was jealous and controlling, that she had ruined the most important day of their lives out of spite. Margaret's friends and family were divided. Some people thought she had gone too far. Others thought Jessica deserved exactly what she got. Margaret wasn't sure how she felt. She missed her son. But she also felt like she had finally stood up for herself after being walked over for months. 3 weeks after the wedding, Margaret got a surprise visitor. It was David's best friend, Mike. Mike had known David since college, and he had watched the whole wedding drama unfold. Mrs. Thompson, Mike said when Margaret answered the door. Can I talk to you? They sat in Margaret's living room, and Mike told her something that changed everything. I need you to know what really happened after you canceled the wedding, Mike said. Margaret waited. David was panicking. He was calling everyone, trying to figure out how to put together a last-minute wedding. But Jessica was furious at you, but she was also furious at David. What do you mean? She blamed him. She said it was his fault for not controlling his mother better. She said he should have seen this coming. She said he was weak for letting you get away with it. Margaret felt a knot in her stomach. It got worse, Mike continued. At the small ceremony at her parents' house, Jessica wouldn't stop talking about how embarrassed she was, how her family would never forgive this, how David had disappointed her. What did David say? At first, he defended her. He said she was just stressed and hurt. But then something happened that opened his eyes. Mike told Margaret what happened at the small wedding ceremony. Jessica's grandmother, who was 85 years old, had trouble walking. She needed help getting to her seat. David offered to help her, but Jessica stopped him. Don't worry about her, Jessica said. She can manage on her own. We need to start the ceremony. The old woman struggled to her seat, while Jessica ignored her completely. Later, during the dinner, Jessica's grandmother knocked over her water glass by accident. Instead of helping clean it up, Jessica rolled her eyes and said loudly, "Can someone deal with this? She's making a mess." David watched all of this happen, and for the first time, he saw Jessica the way Margaret had been seeing her for months. Cold, selfish, mean to people she thought didn't matter. After dinner, Mike told Margaret, David pulled me aside. He said, "I think I understand why my mom did what she did." "What did you tell him?" Margaret asked. "I told him the truth. I told him that Jessica had been treating you badly for months. I told him that we all saw it, but we didn't want to interfere. I told him that asking your mother to sit in the kitchen at her own son's wedding was cruel." Margaret felt tears in her eyes. "David asked me if I thought he should call you. I told him, yes. But I also told him he needed to do more than just call. He needed to understand that what Jessica did was wrong, and he needed to decide if he wanted to be married to someone who could be that cruel to his mother." 2 days later, Margaret's phone rang. It was David. "Mom?" "Hi, honey. Can I come over? I need to talk to you." "Of course." An hour later, David was sitting in Margaret's kitchen, the same kitchen where Jessica had wanted Margaret to sit during the wedding. David looked tired. He looked sad. He looked like he had been thinking a lot. "Mom, I need to apologize." Margaret waited. "I should have stood up for you. Jessica was wrong to treat you the way she did, and I was wrong to let it happen." "Thank you for saying that. I keep thinking about the kitchen thing. I can't believe she wanted you to sit in the kitchen. At my wedding. After everything you've done for me." Margaret reached across the table and took her son's hand. "The worst part," David continued, "is that I think I knew she was being mean to you. But I told myself it was just wedding stress. I told myself it would get better after the wedding. And now?" David was quiet for a moment. "Now I don't think it would have gotten better. I think it would have gotten worse." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Jessica is still furious about the wedding. She wants me to cut you out of my life completely. She says we can't have a relationship with you until you apologize and pay for a new wedding." Margaret felt her heart sink. "And what do you want?" "I want my mom back." Over the next few weeks, David had to make the hardest decision of his life. Jessica gave him an ultimatum. Either he cut Margaret out of his life completely, or she would leave him. "She said I had to choose," David told Margaret during one of their conversations. "Her or you." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that no one should have to choose between their fiancé and their mother. I told her that a good partner would want me to have a good relationship with my family." "And what did she say?" "She said that you're toxic and controlling. She said that canceling the wedding proved that you would always try to manipulate me. She said that if I didn't cut you off, it meant I was weak, and she couldn't respect me." Margaret's heart broke for her son. She could see how much pain he was in. "David, I don't want to be the reason your relationship ends." "Mom, you're not the reason. The reason is that Jessica can't accept that I have people in my life who matter to me besides her. What are you going to do?" David took a deep breath. "I think I already know what I have to do. I just need to find the courage to do it." 3 days later, David called Jessica and told her that he couldn't marry someone who wanted him to choose between her and his family. Jessica was furious. She told him he was making the biggest mistake of his life. She told him he would regret it forever. She told him he was weak and pathetic. And then she said something that made David realize he had made the right choice. "Fine," Jessica said. "But don't think you can come crawling back to me. And don't think your precious mommy is going to find you anyone better. You're not that great of a catch anyway." Breaking up with Jessica was hard for David. Even though he knew it was the right thing to do, he had still loved her. Or at least, he had loved the person he thought she was. Margaret was there for him through all of it. She made him his favorite meals. She listened when he needed to talk. She gave him space when he needed to be alone. "I feel like such an idiot," David said one evening while they were having dinner together. "Why?" "Because everyone could see what Jessica was really like except me. You saw it. Mike saw it. Probably everyone saw it. You weren't an idiot. You were in love. Love makes us see the best in people, even when they're not showing us their best. But I should have protected you. I should have stood up for you." Margaret smiled. "You did stand up for me, just not in the way I expected." "What do you mean?" "I mean you chose me over her when it mattered most. When she forced you to choose, you chose family. You chose love over control." David squeezed his mother's hand. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see the truth. I'm just glad you saw it before it was too late." 6 months after the canceled wedding, something wonderful happened. David met someone new. Her name was Sarah, and she was completely different from Jessica. The first time Sarah came to dinner at Margaret's house, she brought flowers and insisted on helping with the dishes. She asked Margaret about her work as a nurse. She wanted to see pictures of David as a little boy. And when Margaret mentioned the canceled wedding story, Sarah's reaction was perfect. "She wanted you to sit in the kitchen?" Sarah asked, looking shocked. "At your own son's wedding?" "That's what she said." Sarah turned to David. "Please tell me you're joking." "I wish I was," David said. Sarah shook her head. "Margaret, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's horrible." And then Sarah said something that made Margaret's heart sing. "When David and I get married, you're sitting in the front row. Right, where you belong. Margaret started to cry. Happy tears. And, Sarah continued, I want you to help plan everything. It should be a family celebration, not just a party for the bride. David looked at his mother and his new girlfriend, and Margaret could see how happy he was. There's just one thing, Sarah said with a smile. What's that? Margaret asked. You have to promise me you won't cancel everything if you don't like the flowers I pick. Everyone laughed. A year later, David and Sarah did get married, and it was everything Margaret had dreamed her son's wedding would be. Margaret sat in the front row, right next to Sarah's parents. She wore a beautiful dress that Sarah helped her pick out. She cried happy tears when David and Sarah exchanged vows. During the reception, David gave a speech. I want to thank everyone for being here today, he said. But most of all, I want to thank two women. First, my beautiful wife Sarah, who showed me what real love looks like. Everyone clapped. And second, my mother Margaret, who taught me that love sometimes means standing up for yourself, even when it's hard. Margaret was crying again. Last year, my mom did something that shocked everyone. She canceled my first wedding. At the time, I thought it was the worst thing that could happen. But now I know it was the best thing that could happen. David looked directly at his mother. Mom, thank you for saving me from making the biggest mistake of my life. And thank you for showing me that I deserve someone who treats the people I love with respect. The whole room applauded. Later that night, while Margaret was dancing with her son, he whispered in her ear, I'm proud to be your son, Mom. I'm proud to be your mother. So what can we learn from Margaret's story? First, sometimes being nice isn't enough. Margaret tried to be understanding. She tried to keep the peace. She tried to make everyone happy. But sometimes, people will take advantage of your kindness if you let them. Second, standing up for yourself doesn't make you a bad person. Margaret wasn't trying to hurt anyone. She was trying to protect her own dignity. There's a difference between being mean and refusing to be mistreated. Third, real love doesn't ask you to choose between the people you care about. Jessica wanted David to choose between her and his mother. Sarah wanted David to have a good relationship with his family. That's the difference between healthy love and controlling love. Fourth, actions have consequences. Jessica thought she could treat Margaret badly because Margaret was paying for everything. She thought Margaret would just accept whatever treatment she got because she wanted David to be happy. She was wrong. And finally, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. David's canceled wedding was embarrassing and painful, but it saved him from marrying someone who would have made his life miserable. Margaret's story spread around the internet and became famous. Some people called her a hero. Others called her petty and controlling. But Margaret doesn't care what strangers think. She knows she did the right thing. I don't regret canceling the wedding, Margaret told me when I interviewed her for this story. I regret that it had to come to that. I wish Jessica had treated me with basic respect. I wish David had stood up for me sooner. But I don't regret standing up for myself. Do you think you would do it again? I hope I never have to. But yes, if someone tried to treat me like that again, I would absolutely do it again. What would you say to other parents who are dealing with difficult in-laws? Margaret thought for a moment. I would say don't be afraid to set boundaries. Don't let anyone treat you badly just to keep the peace. And remember that real family doesn't ask you to accept disrespect. Any regrets? Just one. I regret that I didn't speak up sooner. I let Jessica's behavior go on for months because I didn't want to cause problems. If I had addressed it earlier, maybe things could have been different. So there you have it. The story of the mother who canceled her son's wedding because the bride wanted her to sit in the kitchen. Was Margaret right? Was she wrong? I think that depends on your perspective. But one thing is clear. Margaret refused to be disrespected, even when it cost her everything. And in the end, it saved her son from a marriage that would have been a disaster. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is also the right thing to do. Sometimes standing up for yourself feels like being selfish, but it's actually being strong. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting free. Margaret got free from Jessica's disrespect. David got free from a controlling relationship. And they both got back to what really matters. Family. What do you think? Was Margaret a hero or a villain? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more amazing stories like this one, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. Make sure you're teaching them the right lesson. Before you go, check out this other story about a bride who got the shock of her life when her future mother-in-law revealed a family secret at the wedding rehearsal. You won't believe what happened. Next, and don't forget to subscribe. We post new stories every day, and trust me, you don't want to miss them. See you soon.